First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. I know it's tough to get here right after work and through the wonderful traffic we have in Orlando. What I want to talk about today is, it's called a sense of story. And it's a different way of looking at photography. I mean, we often talk about, camera systems and what lenses you use and what kind of light we use and what kind of software we use. Yeah, I use Aperture. Some people use Photoshop and all these different things, all these different filters and programs and all the stuff you see in the catalogs and all the stuff that the other speakers talk about and how to shoot from a moving boat and how to jump out of an airplane and photograph backwards over your head and all these different things. However, we seldom talk about why we do it. Why do you do it? I mean, it's fun, but there's got to be more to it than that. So, photography is just one tool in itself in storytelling. And as Katrina just mentioned, I've been telling stories for a long time. And as a matter of fact, I got my start at 8 years old. Even before the Sentinel, at 8 years old, I wanted to be a reporter. And so my dad bought me this little mechanical typewriter for Christmas. And I put out the Kirsch Times. And basically it was the news of, because my father was Air Force, and he would be gone for weeks at a time. And I would write stories about what happened while he was gone. And he'd come back and read them. And it was kind of yellow journalism, because basically all I did was tell on my sister. Oh yeah, you know that thing that disappeared or broke? Pam did that. And remember how the dog got out? Pam did that. So that didn't last too long. It wasn't long after that I got my first little plastic camera. So the other thing that has become real apparent to me since I've been a member of the Camera Club is that I'm looking at photography a little bit differently, because I've always looked at it just through my eyes or the eyes of my editors. Bill can commiserate with that. I mean, you tend to see things the way the corporate world would see it, or in my case, the corporate world and the editorial world, because I shoot for news. And, that's fine. But when I come here and then I see competitions like we're going to have tonight, and I see people talk about what they're doing and how they're learning and the different types of things that they're trying to learn how to do, whether it be shoot models or landscapes or birds or this or that, it's a different experience for me also to watch you as you go through this learning process. And a lot of my feelings about that come out on competition night, which is tonight. And we've all, for those who've been here for a while, we've all seen some of the competitions where the images will be going through and they're talking about, critiquing them, and they'll say, well, oh, well, there's another one of those. And we've seen that one before, and there's another one of those. Oh, how about that one? I've seen hundreds of those. And when I hear those statements, I can commiserate with the judge, because here's another picture of the big dome at Epcot, or here's another picture of a turkey running along the side of the road, or here's another picture of whatever. And so they're looking at these things, and as a judge, they're forced to judge them on, well, the criteria they get. How sharp is it? Is it follow certain rules of thirds and this and that and the other thing? And so they assign it a score, and off we go. But they almost never scored on the one thing, and in my mind, and in most editors' minds, the only thing that matters. And in the editorial world, this is the only thing that matters. And that is, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about this picture? We've all seen, probably, Robert Capa's pictures of D-Day invasion. And he came in with the troops, and they were shooting everybody up, and he fell in the water, and his film got wet, and he had to process it with horrible chemicals. And I believe he saved like 6 images out of all the film he shot. And the pictures were in terrible shape, mainly because of processing. And you know, when bullets are flying over your head, you kind of shoot and run. I mean, I know what it's like. I've done it. And those pictures, if you were to place them in our judging, would score 0s. But so those are some of the most iconic photos ever taken, because they make you feel what was happening at the time. And that's what he's trying to do. He's communicating. So he's telling a story. And so we have to story? What story? We're taking pictures. I mean, what are you talking about, stories? You know, what is a story? Why do we tell stories? Well, when you come home from work, the wife says, or husband says, "How was your day?" Well, no. Well, there's a story. You come into the camera club meeting. "Hey, what'd you do on Sunday? Did you go out shooting, Wayne?" "Yeah." "How was it?"
Good.
"Yeah." "Where'd you go?"
No.
"Yeah." So Wayne's relating a story. I'm kind of beating it out of him, but that's what goes on. Every single thing you do, the minute you wake up, you start moving through the story, that's your life, and you start encountering content. And the content is the things you hear, the things you smell, see, all that stuff, and of course the content you make. And that could be your work, or it could be your photography. So let's talk about what is a story. You know, the Wikipedia, I'll just stick that up there. That's the definition that I stole out of Wikipedia. And the story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And for a movie or a book or something like that, that's pretty easy to do. In a photograph, how do you do that in a single photograph? You know, as a photojournalist, a lot of times I'm assigned to a story, like Trayvon Martin's story or any of them, and I go out there and I shoot a series of photos, and the editors will take and pick and choose from those and create a story. Sometimes it's only one, and that's what they'll run with. So you have to learn how to make a story in a single photo, but a lot of times it will run long form. So that's a little bit easier. It gets more difficult when you want to have a beginning, a middle, and an end in one image. So, as an example, this is an image from the Trayvon Martin story that I covered for over 500 days. About 544 days, I think it was, from beginning to end. And this is a single image, obviously, and it kind of tells the story in one image. It's a paper telling the story about it. It's got justice for Trayvon. It has all the perpetrators. It tells you that it's a hot day. The guy's under an umbrella. There's chairs out there. There's other people around. There's a lot going on in this image, but it's a pretty powerful image, and it ran in the New York Daily News off the first big rally that they had for Trayvon Martin. So you can tell a story in one image by incorporating certain elements, the important things. Here's another image from that same story. This is the day they got the verdict. And there was a lot of tension out there, and there was a lot of people out there too. And a lot of them were police officers. And as a journalist, one of the things I try to do is make friends with them all, but every now and then there's somebody I don't know and they don't know me, and they just, you can see. But the action is there. There's a guy in the middle there that's putting out his point of view, which isn't really agreeing with everyone else, so that brought everyone in. So the story here is that coverage, that intense, dramatic coverage that's going on there. And then this is the last image from that series. This is the moment that they got the verdict, the not guilty verdict. And actually, I was the one who gave it to them, because I was the only one who had a link inside the courthouse. Everybody else had like a 30-second delay. I had somebody that had managed to get a cell phone in. So this is the response. As soon as I let it out, I knew what it was. I started shooting, and then I told, say not guilty, and the look on people's faces from just stoic to outrage, all in a split second. So, other stories can be told by emotion. Emotions are really make it interesting. And one of the interesting things about emotions is you can get several different emotions in a single image, depending on what the situation is. The guy with the GoPro, he's holding it, it's kind of hard to see with the light here, but he's holding like a bicycle helmet and his GoPro mounted on the front of that. And these riot police are from all over the state of Florida. Some are sheriffs, deputies, some are police officers, some are state officers. Had formed a line there, and he walked right up there and stuck his camera right past their line, which took some real nerve, but I could see him sweating, and I heard him also say, "I'm going to die," when he did it. And the big guy there, I think, was willing to help him along that way, but he didn't. There was a lot of restraint shown by everybody, but the tension was incredibly high, and the looks on people's faces pretty much, it's kind of hard to see, kind of tell it all. So one of the easy ways to tell stories are look for relationships between the participants and then their environment. And then another type of story is one that I've started doing in the last several years, and these are personal projects. And the Murder City Project is one of those. I spent 1.5 years on this project, and I'm telling a story about homicide and people. And it's about all kinds of people in all kinds of situations, rich, poor, white, black, Jewish, Protestant, you name it, they're in this project. There's 24 images. They're all in black and white, except for a gold pocket watch that's in every picture. And these pictures relate these homicides. And these are made up scenes, so every detail is staged. Every last poker chip is set, and the reflections in the glass show the hand of cards, and the weapons point to different things, and there's all sorts of lines and stuff, hidden lines that draw people into the image and help tell the story. They help direct it. So you can tell a story with projects. That's another one. And then this is the last image in that series. This is a story within a story. Yes, there's a killer, her, and the victim, the guy under the tarp there. But now there's, like I said, this project was about homicide and how and why people kill. Well, she definitely killed him, but look at her. It's one of those. Now there's a sub-story in that one. So she's a victim, she's a killer, but she's also a victim. So stories can have other stories that revolve inside them. And I know you're thinking, well, how does all this apply to what I do? I mean, the question is, why? Why is it important? Anybody hazard a guess?
So you can feel something.
What's that?
So you can feel something when you
Right.
look at the photo.
Exactly. It's been said that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, if that's true, then the storytelling capability of photography is immense. And you can easily get an emotion across to somebody with the image versus, building up a storyline through paragraphs of text. So this is that first image that I had at the beginning, and Ron was with me the day we shot this. We were driving around, and I saw this abandoned couch under an overpass, and I said, "Ron, stop, stop, stop." He said, "Why? I want to go shoot that couch." "Well, why do you want to shoot that thing?" "Because, just we're going." "Okay." So we get out and we're shooting this. And I'm waiting for the, "Why do you wait?" "I'm waiting for a car, I'm waiting for a car." And he said, "Well, it's just going to ruin the image." "No, it's not about the couch, Ron. It's not about the couch." So, and we've all seen this before. There's a text line that goes with it. It's called "Left Behind, Unwanted, and Abandoned." We've all seen this before. Maybe not quite like this, but maybe you've seen it like that. Left behind, unwanted, and abandoned. We've all seen that.
Is that on Central Avenue?
That's on Orange Avenue. So, as a photojournalist, my job is to not only inform people, but get them to feel what I feel. When I'm out there, I try to be objective 100% and not let my personal feelings interfere. That's really hard to do. But it doesn't mean I can't let people know what the human norm of feeling would be when you see something like this. And this is the thing that gives power to images. How many people remember Kevin Carter's image of the girl in Sudan, the little starving girl? And she was all bent over and the vulture was behind her? Anybody remember that one? The one that Pulitzer Prize?
It's a good movie, too.
Hmm?
They made a movie about it, too.
Yeah.
Bang Bang Club.
Bang Bang Club, yep. And so he made that photo of her, and that went worldwide. And people suddenly, their attention was riveted. In one photo, it told that story. There's a girl, little black girl. She had to be, hard to say, maybe 6 or 7, young, really young, maybe 5, starving to death, all bent over like this on the ground, and a vulture just waiting for her to die. And he captured the photo. He was up covering the stuff going on in apartheid. He went up there, photographed that. That picture won the Pulitzer Prize. So after he shot the photo, though, he went and wished the vulture away. But he didn't do anything about the girl. He just left her. And as a photojournalist, we're not required to take action. It's pretty much up to us to decide whether we want to get involved or not. But my feeling is if you have to save a life, first do that, then get the picture, or get the picture while you're saving the life or whatever. But anyway, he didn't do it, and he couldn't live with it, and he didn't. So, but that's just how powerful that image was, and his experience with that image was. And that galvanized the world to pay attention to what's going on in Sudan. So, and this is that image again. Now, it's hard to tell, but this picture comes upward about here. So, this is where the rules of thirds and those things like that, I could care less. I'm looking for something that makes a feeling come out. And there's a big, when you see the image, it's just black. And you know what, for people like this, that's where they live. Not just in this country, but every country. When they're that destitute, they live in a world of darkness. And everything else that's outside of that world is blazingly bright. They're just not part of it. And so that's just a little bit of this particular person in both worlds. So the image isn't about rules of thirds. It's not about how sharp it is. It's not about color. My personal feeling is sometimes dark business deserves dark black and white, dark colors. You know? And it's okay to do things. Don't worry about, I need to do this. Don't worry about this color balance or that. Do whatever you think it does, you need to do to get your feeling about this thing out. So how do we do that? I believe in shooting with intent. I don't have a problem with walking around, do walk-around photography. We all do that, all of us. Go out and just see what there is to shoot, and we photograph it. And that's okay. But when you find something that catches your attention, why does it do that? You know, is it just because it's pretty? Or is there something that speaks to you about it? Or is there something that you want to say about that? And the thing that makes a big difference to me, and it changed a lot for me, is how I look at the world around me. Now, most people, and a good example of this was when we did the shoot inside the other room, when we had all the tables filled full of stuff and we were shooting those things. Most people shoot objects. You know, there's a bird, there's a landscape, there's a car, there's an airplane, there's whatever, and that's the object. An object is a thing. And they'll light it a certain way, and they'll move different angles, they'll try different, you know, lens choices, hopefully, and work it. But they're working an object, a thing. And that's just, I mean, this is a thing, an object. What can you say about it? Not much. What changed things for me is when I stopped looking at objects or things as objects, and I started looking at them as subjects. A subject is a thing with a story. And when you start looking at things like that, and you assign, a subject is a living thing, usually. So you're in communication with that bottle, this tree, that thing. And when you start treating it like a living thing or something that you can communicate with, you know, you start asking, what's your story? And let that object tell you, and they will. Bill, I know you know what this is about, because I see it in your work. You know, when you make that jump from shooting objects to subjects, it will change. Number one, it changes your life, because suddenly everything in the world has more meaning, different meaning, and becomes more special. And number two, when you photograph a subject, a person, because basically everything is almost equal to being a human. So if you assign those values to different things, you will approach those objects, those things, in a new light. And you'll have a different sensitivity to them, and that sensitivity will allow you to tell you their story, because they're going to communicate with you just like everyone else communicates with you. You know, what'd you do today? Where'd you go? You know, how was your summer vacation? That kind of thing. So, Mr. Squirrel, why are you here? Well, I'm here to steal your birdseed. Okay. Well, let's explore that, you know, and get it from his perspective. Not just there's a squirrel stealing birdseed. Let's get it from how he feels about it, what he might think, his point of view. Why is he doing it? Those things. When you start adding that feeling about things, that's when the stories come out, because everything has a story to tell. The birds that have a story to tell. And for the bird shooters out there, I mean, you know the birds really well, so you know that these birds are going to do this probably, or do that, or what have you. But why do they do it? Number one, maybe. But why? And if they could tell you, what would they say? So, stories are about capturing the human emotions, and that's what basically what all it is. And when you add emotion to any image, that brings that image to life. We've seen images all the time, even in the competitions and stuff like that, that are technically perfect images. I mean, it follows all the rules of thirds, the noise level is perfect, it's beautiful focus, it's sharp, it's got detail on the face of the sun. The sun, the whole sun's in there, and you can see every detail on the sun's face. I don't know how they do it. Meanwhile, at the black end there, which is no light, you can actually see detail when there's no light there. So, and then everything's perfectly sharp, even when you magnify it 200,000%. and the bird that always looks this way, and the judge says, I wish you could make the bird look left. The bird looks left, you know, so you got a perfect image. And it's just glorious that all this is there, and it's the most boring photo you've ever seen. Because it doesn't say anything. Because no one's telling the story. You know, if that bird is there, whatever that subject is, there is a story there somewhere. What is it? What is it? You know, don't just go up and start shooting, but approach with intent to find out what is the story here. You know? And when you understand those emotions, that I want to display anger or anxiety or joy or this on this particular subject, then you have something to go with. You know, here's my subject, this is the emotion. Now, using what I know as a photographer, how am I going to do that? And that's a challenge. It's a real challenge. But when you start doing that, that's when your images come alive. That's what makes for the good stock photography. They shoot those images, they may be somewhat generic, but there's emotion in all of them, even though they may be subtle, that people just, yeah, I get that, I feel that, you know, I feel it. And that is what makes those pictures sell. And when you've got that emotion, start crafting the world of your photo. If you don't have to just photograph what's there, you can make your photograph. Those projects I did, the Murder City project, I built every one of those sets. We put those things together. Some of those things we worked on for 6, 7 months to get that stuff together to make one photo. We built it. And that was built to convey an emotion, to convey a story. So your viewers will only feel connected if they can feel the emotion of a leading character. Now this person was getting ready to go into battle, 15 years old, and was pretty nervous about what was going to happen. And when I looked at him, first I caught my eye, and I stopped, because most of the scenes that you see in combat and war are the heroic soldiers doing this and that, you know, with all the guns and this and the whole deal, and you know, getting all geared up and stuff. But you know, for people who've been under the gun, it's a scary thing, and there's a whole range of emotions there, and this person is showing it. That's some apprehension, was worried about the upcoming battle. And as I looked at him, there was just something about him other than his expression and his body. I mean, his whole body said, I'm scared. But I also looked at his hands. And I don't know if you can really see them, but anybody notice anything interesting about them?
Looks like his brain.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Totally.
Turns out he's a she.
Thought it was a she.
And I'm doing this, and I'm asking, okay, how do you feel about this? And then the voice came out. Wow. So
Where was this?
this was actually here in Florida, in Bellevue. And it was a reenactors thing. But she had never played the part before. And these people are shooting real guns with fake ammunition. But it's strenuous and can be dangerous. And she had never done it before, and she was playing the part of a foot soldier during World War II. And even though it wasn't real, to her, it is real. And that's as real as any expression I've ever seen on anyone's face. So you can see that. I mean, everyone else is up there standing up, getting ready. She's by herself with her fear. So, leading characters. Your story really needs a leading character. She was a leading character. And a leading character can be anything. It can be people, which is great. It can be objects. And the things that really make them interesting are the relationships, that character to their environment, that character to other characters, and then the relationship between that character and the viewer. So here's the leading character, Rose, over at Lou Gardens. And I walked by, saw this, it was bright daylight. And there's something about it because it's got all those multicolors in it, not just red or pink. And I stopped and I looked at it, I really liked it. So I'm thinking, okay, what is this, Rose? And I'm looking at the background and I say, okay, in my mind, I made up the story that I want to tell. Not really necessarily what the rose says. It's a rose in a garden, and in my mind, it's a Gothic rose, which you really can't tell really with the light, but it's darker, it's rich, it stands out. The background is muted. And so normally people would shoot this and look for a perfect balance of light and dark and all that, and that would ruin this photo. 99 times out of 100, that's going to give you an average photo because you're shooting for average light and average this and average that. So your white balance and all that stuff, you've averaged it out, and when you're done, you've got an average photo. Congratulations. You know? Step out. Do something different. Go dark. Go light. You know, if you look in that sun, you're not going to see any detail in the sun. I don't care what the judges say. Well, I'd like to see a judge take a picture of the sun and show me the sunspots on it that they're shooting as it rises above the jets over at Sun and Fun, right? Am I right? Yes. So don't worry about that stuff. Don't worry about any of these things that people have told you that you need to do. If you're telling that story, you get it in your mind what you want to say and say it. Use any tools that you wish. Any of them. You know, the rules are there to tell you a little bit about photography. They're not there to make you tell the story. The story is yours to tell. So subjects are good, and then portraits. I like portraits a lot myself. Portraits can be challenging. We've all seen the bank president who sits there, you know, he's yeah, I'm practicing for Bank of America. You don't know a damn thing about me. I'm taking all your money. You know, but I look good. So, or you can set people up and photograph them in a way where who they are, what they're doing tells you the story. Let them just be themselves and ask them, who are you? What's going on here? And just spend time with them. You know, another way about when it comes to portraits and that storytelling, a lot of people just jump in to shoot. A lot of times it's best just to get comfortable with people or surrounding. With nature photography, especially like in Africa, I'm sure, Bill, you know, you don't just walk up the animals and start clicking away. There's a little bit of that get to know you before the really good stuff happens. I've done photos where I photographed a person and I know they're not ready. And I'll shoot 150 photos of them knowing that I'm not going to use any of them. And I'm doing this or that or whatever. And just getting them ready, moving them slowly but surely into the point where they're there. And then when they go from this to, you're there. So you watch them, they'll clue you in. And then the storytelling happens, because then they let themselves become themselves, and that's when the story starts unfolding before you. This was actually shot at Sun and Fun. And this is an example of shooting with intent. When we got there was a bunch of us that went. Joe was there, Katrina, Wayne, Mary was there, and we all baked in the sun. It was hotter than hell. But it could have been August. So we all got there, and pretty much everybody went that way, and I went this way. I mean, I just took off by myself, because I knew before I even got there that I really, you know, it's a walk around, shoot what you see type environment, but that wasn't my goal. My intent was to do portraits. Well, why would you go to an air show to shoot portraits? Because I wanted to shoot portraits of pilots and people who own these planes and people who react in these planes and reenactors and all these folks. You know, you can get airplane pictures anytime. And so that's what I did. And my intent was to make portraits at an air show. And some of these here are examples of that. And these are reenactors. They recreate military people or different kinds of people that, you know, from all kinds of time periods. There's reenactors that do King Arthur and the Egyptians and all of those guys. This is a Canadian officer. And I found a big tent in the back. What do you guys do with this tent? Well, nothing. And it was big, huge. So can I use it? Yeah, so I opened the flaps to let the sun hit the ground and come up. I lifted the flap in the back off the top and it let a little backlight come in, and I built myself a natural light studio and just shot these guys in there. And so tell me about who you are. Well, I'm a Canadian Air Force pilot for World War II, and you know, I've been stationed out here in the desert and it's hot, you know, and I'm trying to make the best of a situation, and so, okay, and I'm trying to keep a stiff upper look and look good like an officer should. And so these guys would relate their stories to me as if it were happening in a real combat situation. Another guy from World War II. And so let their body language just, you know, these guys play the parts, let them play it. When you're photographing people and you want to know, you know, if I want to photograph Christian, I'm not just going to say, okay, Christian, just sit there and I'm going to start moving around. I'm going to spend a little bit of time with him. I'm going to learn a little bit about him. What's his story? You know, he's a very talented graphic artist. How am I going to relate that? How am I going to let his personality come through? So think about these things when you're photographing people and objects and stuff. And then, this is Zeta. Experiment. If you're shooting one person, shoot them multiple ways, or process them. Do post multiple ways for the same person. We spent 3 hours getting her ready, and I shot her for 40 minutes straight, 6 years old. And in this period of time, I was able to get lots of different looks. Okay, Zeta, imagine this. You're this. Okay. And imagine you're that. You're royalty as a fairy. Okay. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. And then a ghostly version of her. So, you know you want to tell a story on something, start working it, but like you normally do when you shoot different angles and things, explore different versions of that story. Here's so-and-so doing this, but maybe they were doing it and it went this way, or maybe this happened instead, or maybe this is this way. And think about those things and incorporate them. Try to get those different feelings out. First, well, this is that person. She's happy. No, she's angry. No, she's sad. And dressed the same way, that's going to look very different. It's going to look very different. And this was from the air show. And this is a thing where I directed. I say, park the Jeep here. You guys stand here. You stand here. You do this, do that. I built the image where I wanted everybody. These are photos, like my father was a B-17 pilot, and the things that I saw his crew do. When they weren't up in the air being shot at, they were having as much fun as they possibly could, enjoying themselves and joking and stuff. So I arranged it. Don't have any hesitation to say, you know, could you do this, move here, move that, move this. Make it, it's your story. You tell it, you are in control. And this is another thing. This is something I would challenge all of you to do. This is a project I'm working on now called Raise Your Weapons. It's all these combat scenes from World War II, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and Korea. Everything is real, except the actors are boys between 8 and 12 years old. And I would challenge each of you to find something that you're passionate about. It could be birds, or it could be matchbox cars, it could be basketball, something that you are passionate about. And make a project on that. Say, I'm going to shoot 10 images on this project about this. And I'm going to tell that story through these 10 images. Each one's going to be a story, and all 10 of them together are a story. That is my challenge to you. You believe me, it's much more difficult than you think, but it's very rewarding when you do it, because it opens your eyes to many things. Just another image from that. And then this one. Orlando and I spent 3 months making an explosive for this thing and blowing up stuff in my backyard and stuff raining down all over the place. And the neighbors, boom, boom, boom. You know, and then when we blew it up, it actually did blow up. The thing blew to pieces, but it rained down just perfectly, and I got the shot. But this shot took 4 or 5 months to put together. And it's one of 30 in the project. So, easy way to do it. I'm going to leave you with these. We all have, well, you can't see anything on that.
Barely down at the bottom there.
Yeah. Can you kill the light, Orlando? So, you still can't see it. All right. We all have smartphones, pretty much, I think, or at least we have a phone with a camera in it. And so take that camera and tell stories with your phone. You have it with you all the time. You're at work, this happens, that happens, something's going on. Use that camera to tell that story. You can do it. And just think about it. And use that. The phone, camera phone is an amazing tool. No, it's not going to be the thing you do your major work on, although it could be nowadays, but it is an amazing tool. Portraits with it. The fish, I was at Publix, this fish said, "Man, can you get me out of here?" And just the look on his face, I said, "Buddy, I think I can." And then the last thing, when you get a bunch of photographers together, remember this?
Yeah.
The picture at the top is Rick Salmon's wife, and everybody said, "We're going to do food photography." And of course, everybody get their cameras out and start taking pictures. So there's food photographer with Orlando Camera Club members, and they're telling the story on this. I don't know what that is. Doesn't look good, but they ate it. So anyway, the point is, shoot with intent. Shoot subjects, not objects. Remember, treat everything as if it were alive and could communicate with you, and I guarantee you it will change your life as a photographer. It will change your life. It will certainly change your images. And that's all I have. Thank you.